Emily was the type of person who often wondered what she was truly capable of, yet she rarely allowed herself to step outside the comfortable circle she had drawn around her life. She had a good job, a small but cozy apartment, and a circle of close friends who kept her weekends filled with coffee dates and lighthearted conversations. But deep down, she felt restless. At 32, she had reached a place where routine had taken over, and while routine offered safety, it left her wondering if she was really living her life to the fullest. One evening, Emily sat at her kitchen table with a steaming cup of tea and a notebook open in front of her. The pages were empty, but in her mind, she was full of questions. "What am I afraid of?" she whispered to herself. She remembered a quote she once read, "Life begins at the edge of your comfort zone." That night, she decided to test her limits. But she knew herself well enough to realize she couldn't do it alone. She would need others. So she made a decision that would shape her year. She invited her closest friends to join her in a challenge where they would all try something new together, something that scared them a little but could help them grow. When she pitched the idea to her two closest friends, Sarah and Claire, they were skeptical at first. They had their own lives, jobs, and busy schedules. But Emily's sincerity convinced them. "It doesn't have to be something crazy," she told them. "It just has to be something we wouldn't normally do." The first step of testing her limits wasn't climbing a mountain or running a marathon. It was simply opening her world to others, admitting that she wanted more, and inviting them to come along. Their first gathering took place in Emily's living room on a Friday night. Instead of the usual movie marathon, Emily spread out papers, pens, and a big bowl of popcorn. They wrote down challenges on slips of paper, everything from speak in public to try painting to run a 5K. The energy was electric, filled with laughter and nervous glances as they realized they were agreeing to face things they had always avoided. Sarah confessed she was terrified of speaking in front of people. Claire admitted she had never tried any outdoor sports. Emily herself wrote down something that made her palms sweat: share a personal story with strangers. Their first adventure was small. They signed up for a local art class. At first, Emily felt silly holding a paintbrush, convinced her canvas would look like a child's doodle. But as the music played softly in the studio and they shared laughs over crooked lines and mismatched colors, she realized it wasn't about perfection. It was about giving herself permission to try. And in that moment, she felt a flicker of pride. Each week brought something new. They went hiking on a trail that had always intimidated them, climbed a hill that left them breathless but exhilarated at the top. They tried a cooking class where they nearly set the stove on fire but ended up laughing so hard they cried. They went to a small open mic night, where Emily signed up to tell a short story. She nearly backed out when her heart raced and her hands shook, but Sarah squeezed her hand and whispered, "You've got this." When Emily finally walked on stage and began to speak, her voice trembled at first, but as she told her story about overcoming loneliness in her 20s, she saw heads nodding in the audience. People related. When the applause came, it wasn't just for her story. It was for her bravery. The group became more than just a fun project. It became a lifeline. Every time one of them faltered, the others were there to cheer them on. One evening by the campfire, Claire said, "I never realized how much I held myself back until now. This is what living feels like." Emily's heart swelled with gratitude. She realized she hadn't just tested her limits. She had opened a door for her friends, too. But it wasn't always easy. There were days Emily doubted herself, days she wanted to cancel plans because the fear was too loud in her chest. The night before a 5K charity run, she lay awake convincing herself she couldn't do it. She wasn't a runner. She wasn't strong enough. But when she showed up that morning, lacing her sneakers with trembling fingers, she saw her friends waiting at the starting line, waving and smiling. That was enough to keep her moving forward. She didn't come in first. She didn't even come close. But she crossed the finish line, and tears of victory filled her eyes. As the months passed, Emily's confidence grew. She noticed little changes in herself. She was more outspoken at work, volunteering for projects she used to shy away from. She tried new recipes at home instead of sticking to her safe routine. She even began journaling every night, writing down not just what she had done, but how she had felt. One entry read, "I didn't think I could stand up there and tell my story, but I did. And people listened. I think maybe my voice matters more than I believed." Her friends also blossomed. Sarah signed up to lead a workshop at her company, and Claire joined a local running club. Their journeys inspired one another, and soon their circle expanded. New friends asked to join them, curious about the idea of pushing past limits together. Emily realized her decision to invite others had created something bigger than herself. It had created a community. One evening, nearly a year after they started, Emily stood in her apartment, surrounded by friends. She looked around at the familiar faces, some new, some old, all glowing with the warmth of shared experience. She raised her glass and said, "I thought I was testing my limits when I invited you all. But what I didn't realize is that the real limit was believing I couldn't do this. And together, we've proven we can do more than we ever thought possible." That night, as she walked to her bedroom, Emily paused at her notebook still sitting on the kitchen table. The pages were no longer blank. They were filled with stories, memories, and lessons. She smiled, knowing this was only the beginning. The sunrise the next morning felt different. She walked outside, the golden light spilling across the quiet street, and for the first time in years, she felt unstoppable. She had tested her limits, and she had found that life, in all its unexpected beauty, was waiting for her just beyond fear.